Five. All right. Like to call to order the July 9th, 2025 Historic Resources Preservation Board. Could we get a roll call, please?
Elaine Darisso. Laura Devlin. Here. Bob Dorenzo.
Here.
Nadine Heights. Here. Ed DeVoe. Ed LeBlanc. You have one.
Okay, we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Yes, Mr. Phil. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect time.
Mr. DeVoe, how are you? All right, any additions, deletions, reorderings?
There are none.
Okay, can we get an approval of the minutes from the June 11th meeting, please?
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the June 11th meeting as prepared by staff.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. Swearing in of staff and applicants. If you're going to be speaking in front of us, stand up, raise your right hand, please.
Please stand and raise your right hand if you plan on giving testimony. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes. Thank you.
Okay. Any withdrawals or postponements? Okay, and we had proof of publication. No, we didn't need any of that. Any board disclosures? I'm good. Okay. All right. We're gonna start with A.
So this is unfinished business item A, ordinance 2025-04. This is what we are informally calling our summer round of LDR amendments. As you'll all recall, this was originally brought to you all at your June meeting, and you opted to continue it to this meeting to give yourselves a little more time to digest the proposed amendments. Here's all of the sections that are proposed to be modified. And we do have a quick summary of all of the proposed amendments. We did go through it last time in June.
Yes.
So if anyone has any questions about the specific amendments proposed, we can go through those. We did also add a quick slide for the Planning and Zoning Board suggested edits that they mentioned at their June meeting. They did also continue the item to their meeting in August, but their initial comments were some suggestions for revisions to a few definitions. Staff note on the shed definition, we are going to be revising the proposed definition to clarify that all sheds must still meet setbacks and placement requirements, like you can't put it in front of your house, just like any other accessory structure, even with the exemption from building permits. And then PZB did also discuss potentially additional revisions to the language in 23.2-30B to further clarify when the site plan review is required. So if there's any questions from you all, we can discuss specific parts of the ordinance.
What do you
What do you mean?
No, we went over that all last month. She was just saying that these were the revisions that P and Z suggested. If you want to ask anything or over anything, yes, we could discuss it now.
Yeah, we were going to skip through kind of the big overview that I provided in June. We were going to skip over providing that again and just go straight to any comments or questions that you all had from your review of the proposed ordinance. Sure. Could you turn your mic on?
Now it is.
There we go.
Like site plan review.
Uh-huh.
I think, like for the applicant, they get a little bit frustrated because sometimes site plan review takes a great deal of time. And now the applicant gets a little kind of concerning, frustrated because the applicant, because staff takes a little bit time, a little bit more time than I'm not gonna say usual or whatever it may be, whatever the case may be, can a time frame be put on it? Site plan review? Because I think I hate to use other cities, hate to bring that up. They're starting to have and cater to the applicant more to get their plans through. And then they're trying to put it in other cities, adding something called like an accelerated permit. That where, you know, city makes more money on accelerated permit. That's where, you know, the city I was looking for a way to make money. That's where to make money. You see?
I think I understand.
I mean,
I would say
this is house cleaning, right?
this is housekeeping. Something like establishing an accelerated permit program would be probably a larger discussion. It would also involve not just planning, zoning, and historic preservation division, but building division and other departments in the city, depending on what kind of permits were being proposed. So I would say that's not something that we could really add to this ordinance. I would say there is state law about review periods, and if a review of something like a site plan or other development permits extends past a certain period, staff either have to approve or completely deny a project. So there's state law around timelines, but we don't currently have beyond what's required by state law. We don't have anything enumerated in our ordinances about, you know, it takes staff 2 weeks for site plan review or something like that.
So basically, staff should take as long as they want. So they go to the maximum, and then all of a sudden they could deny it with that, make it more difficult for the applicant. I mean, do the applicant have any rights? I mean, I'm speaking for.
State statute is written almost solely
I
for
understand
the
state
applicant's
statute.
rights. The timings are fairly short for what staff needs and is very stringent upon our review timeframes. It's meant to protect the applicants, not the other way around.
You sure?
Yes.
Maybe we should have discussion. Okay, let's move forward.
Okay, applicant makes a site plan. Answer. Are they told that it's gonna take up to X amount of weeks, 30 days, 90 days?
Yes, at pre-application meetings, we always discuss what general timelines are for completeness review, SPRT review, overall project review.
Oh.
Obviously, we can only give an estimated, you know, in an ideal world, it would take this long. Most of the time it takes this long type of thing. But yes,
Okay.
we do discuss that with applicants.
So I noticed here that you wanna to figure out what needs a site plan, what doesn't need a site plan. So that's gonna shorten the time of the applicant. That's gonna be better for the applicant.
Yes, the goal of clarifying and revising the language in the site plan review sections is to make it more clear to applicants from the start when they'll need to do something like a site plan review.
Mhm.
Yes, so that was largely based off of applicant feedback that we undertook redoing that section.
I wonder if it would be helpful for Ed if where could he see what the state requirements are for this?
All state statute is online. I don't remember the exact citations off the top of my head, but if you email me, I can send you them.
I have another the special setback for the single family.
Yes.
I saw that and I saw it was a little bit concerning, like more like precedent, because I'm trying to figure out how many properties there are with the front structure is not close to the road, right? It's really back on the waterfront. So, you know, I came up with like 1 or 2 properties in the city. I know the city like the back of my hand. So, you know, you're talking about they could build a home in front of the existing structure.
No, they could not build a home. These are all in the single family residential zoning district, so
Right.
any accessory structure could not be an accessory dwelling unit. It would be at most something like a guest house, pool house. It would not be its own residential structure.
They
This,
can build that in front of the existing home.
so yes, as the revised language is written, because there's an existing special setback for parcels on the east side of South Lakeside Drive. They're directly abutting the intercoastal between Fifth Avenue South and 13th
I know
Avenue
it's
South.
not-
These are very deep properties, so they have an existing special front setback of 50 feet from South Lakeside Drive. Right now, because many of these properties were developed even further than 50 feet from the property, and they directly abut the intercoastal, there's very limited options for accessory structures to be constructed. You know, even just getting the machines and equipment behind the house, if there's not sufficient setbacks, it is in some cases impossible for an accessory structure to be constructed. So this would be giving them within certain boundaries, like it would need to be no more than 1 story tall. It would still need to be at least 75 feet from the street to try to minimize the visual impact. Trying just to give limited properties, yes, but limited properties with a somewhat unique situation, the option to be able to maybe have an accessory structure of any sort.
Yeah. My question is to that is, how many properties in the city like that? You can only find about 1 or 2, and so we're setting a precedent, right?
No, because it's in a special setback section already. It's very clear what properties this applies to.
I know what she's saying, but the problem is, like, we're going out of our way to cater and to set a precedent, when that precedent is not needed. I mean, if that person was concerned about that property within that house right there, he can make an addition and add on to it, make it one structure moving forward.
But Ed, it's not a precedent. She's saying that it's those specific properties that this is allowed for, not anybody else's.
There's only 1 property or 2 that has that kind of problem.
I mean, what would you like her to do?
You just can't. If we're going to set precedents, we're going to start setting precedents. That's what we want to do. Because that's what it is. There's no way around it. I mean, that's not sugarcoat. There's 2 properties in this city that maybe needs to meet that criteria. And why they can't use that same dwelling and add on to it if they want to move forward to the west.
So again, I can not confirm or deny that it's 2 singular properties. That's not something that we've done an analysis on as part of this. It would apply to all of these parcels. However, another thing to consider with these parcels is that they are in the South Palm Park Historic District.
I know it is.
So doing an addition to the front is often strongly discouraged. Allowing an accessory structure for an additional living area would be a way around messing with the front facade of, in some cases, historically designated structures.
If you want to go down that road, there are other people that are going to want to venture down that road also. Then we're doing this for one property, maybe 2, the most. The precedent. There's no way to get around that.
Help. Even if that was the case, what's your objection to it?
My objection is, in the past, and I remember some cases where they used that property up front. It was always adjoining. They made that an addition to the property, not built something in front of it.
It's only gonna apply to those
Along the waterfront, along the waterfront, yeah.
parcels that have that front setback requirement. So it's only gonna apply to certain properties, whether it's 2, 10, we don't know.
Why are
It's
we
only
doing
gonna
it?
apply to
My
that.
question is,
There's
why
no
are we doing
precedent, because anyone else who's not in that specific setback requirement won't be able to do it, right? So.
We get emotional on this. I mean, I'm only one. I'm only a recommendation.
Well, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak about the parking reductions, please. Could we have some more clarification on that? Because I'm never quite sure about the 15% versus 25%. If that's something that's supposed to be an inducement for the developers. What's the rationale for that, please?
So yeah, we had the 25% reduction in parking requirements for mixed use developments and affordable housing developments. It is intended as an incentive for affordable housing development, to, in some cases, make it more feasible for it to occur. And for mixed use development, the thought is that, yes, it's a parking incentive for mixed use development, but it's also a recognition that the needs of something like a retail for parking are very different than when people are parking for a residential use. So both of those were existing parking reductions that have basis in our comp plan amendment and are supported by various other city plans. The direction to reduce it to a 15% reduction came from the city commission, which is why it was included here. They couldn't eliminate these again because it's part of the comp plan that would require comp plan amendments and other processes, but they did ask for staff to bring it down to 15%.
The commission.
So
Yes.
that's 15% of the square foot of the project, correct?
So the parking reduction it's a 15% reduction in the parking spaces required. So if you need, 100 spaces for your affordable housing development, the 15% reduction would bring you down to 85 spaces needed.
And why would that be advantageous?
It's an
To have less
incentive
parking.
The incentive is that generally you are asking for, you are incorporating some other form of transit in the development and requiring less on-site parking, especially in a city that doesn't have just acres and acres of vacant land to develop. It makes it, in some cases, able to fit on land that we have available.
Would it be done as a consideration to have more space for the structure itself, the building itself?
In some cases, yes.
So a developer would find that to be-
More space for the building, more open space for the residents in some cases, allow for outdoor recreation areas.
So you have more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, is there a trend? I would think there would be for cities to discourage parking anyways, right? I mean, reduce the amount of concrete space that's devoted to parking and instead green space or residential space, trying to encourage transit use or encourage less vehicle use in general.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Yeah,
So
rather than the other way around, right?
Yes.
You're not seeing cities like want more parking.
Yeah.
So I think it's a trend in the right direction from that perspective.
So you have more on-street parking, in other words.
This is the required on-site parking.
This, just to be clear, this change is to reduce the extent of the reduction that is allowed. So currently, you can have a 25% reduction, which would reduce that 100 parking spaces to 75.
Mhm.
And this is to limit it only to 15. So it's required.
So it actually increases,
Street
yeah.
park on light parking.
That's the point I'm making. It'd be more on-street parking.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Say what?
It's to require more on-site
Site
parking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
On recommendations, I have people raising their hand for public comment. I mean, these are just recommendations. Yes,
You still accept public
we
comment?
still accept public comments, okay? Mr. Kaplan.
Good evening. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. And this caught my eye as I was going through the agenda. For those of you who don't know, I'm an urban planner. And my clients consist of people who are trying to open a business or do something different with their property in various municipalities throughout Palm Beach County. And one of the frustrations I've had just within the boundary of Lake Worth is the distinction between major and minor site plan review. And if you look at the requirements, the actual list of the items that are required for both the major and the minor site plan review, they're identical. The only thing that is different is the fee and whether it comes before the board or it's reviewed by staff. So I apologize for missing the previous presentation. I guess it was in June. So if someone could just review the changes to the major and the minor site plan, with the thought and the wish being from me is that there be a greater distinction between the two, and not necessarily make the major more difficult, but make the minor less onerous for the person who might have a lease, wants to be a tenant and open their business in someone else's store, but requires physical improvements, that sort of thing. Just the requirements being exactly the same. Civil engineering plans, licensed architect plans, survey of the property, that sort of thing. If anything was done to address that distinction. So.
So the list of items required for a minor site plan application was not drastically changed. What was done was the requirement or the types of development or alterations that require a minor site plan amendment were shifted a lot to the minor site plan modification, which is a much smaller process, requires much less. It does have its own small list of things that are needed. Unlike a minor site plan, it is a minor site or a site plan modification is concurrent with the building permit, not prior to the building permit. Typically, it gets routed to fewer reviewers across the city. A lot of times it just stays with planning and zoning. So we didn't change the list of what's needed for a minor site plan amendment, but we decreased the types of developments that will need a minor site plan amendment and pushed a lot of them to a smaller review process.
And that's good to hear, and I encourage that. And any place that you can make it easier for the littler guy, the tenant who doesn't have his architect and civil engineer on speed dial, would be helpful.
All right. Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm done. You sworn in, sir.
Yeah. You don't need to be sworn in for this.
Right, this is just public comment.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yes, I have one of those. Hi, my name is Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. And I just wanted to say that I'm very much against this parking reduction situation. I realize that the city needs to have more people, what's the word, density. We want to increase our density. But all street parking, I think, should go to the homeowners so that they can actually put in their ADUs, which is something we've been talking about for a long time. It just doesn't seem to gain any traction, like a lot of things that get talked about around here. And so I just wanted to say, please, vote no on that, because the density should go to the property owners before it gets given away to the developers. Street parking should not be counted as part of the parking system for any huge development done by people that could buy us all. Thank you.
So can we maybe get some clarification on, just give us some more examples? Like, I know you gave an example and of how, because I'm still a little confused on that too, because I got your, kind of example, which said that means a new project would actually have to provide more parking, but Annie, yours was more like, I got the idea that it was less, so I'm not
So
understanding it.
existing 25% parking reduction. So if you're giving us a development of 100 affordable units, under the current code, you could have a 25% reduction of your off-street parking requirement. So if you needed 100 parking spaces off-street, that 25% reduction would bring you down to 75 off-street spaces. Now, of those required spaces, you would be allowed to count on street spaces that are directly touching your property. You would not be counting anyone else's, a parking
Right.
space in front of your neighbor's house. You've
Right.
never been allowed to do that.
Right.
You would only be counting your on-street spaces that abut your property, and you could count some of those towards your total parking requirement.
Right, that I'm familiar with.
So
Got it.
none of the on-street parking elements are changing. What is changing is that your same affordable development with this change would only bring your total parking space count down to 85 instead of 75, because our parking reduction incentive is getting smaller.
So the property owner would actually have to add more parking to their parking garage because, but the amount of spaces you can count doesn't change.
Yeah, the amount of
Right.
on-street spaces you could
Right.
count is not changing.
Right, so it won't, I just wanted to address that for you, that it's not gonna affect, there's no change in on-street parking allocation with this proposal.
It actually could make it a little better. What makes it difficult to understand, it's sort of like a double negative, a reduction and a
Yeah,
It's a reduction.
that's what threw me
Yeah.
off initially.
Yeah,
too.
no, that's why
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard to kind of grasp
Yeah.
what they're saying.
Yeah.
So. To make it simple. Because, if you go down L Street, M Street, O Street, you just can't get past all the cars. And so, I'm gonna make you mention Ocean Breeze. To make it simple. The quadruplexes. Their units. If they want to say it's affordable housing.
Mhm.
They get the 15% reduction. They go down to 15%.
If you developed a quadruplex with affordable housing, you could be eligible for what would, if this passes, be a 15% reduction in your overall spaces required.
Rather than 25%, which is what it is now.
So
You're
eventually,
getting less of a reduction.
our town is gonna look like.
No, they're gonna have to allocate more in their parking. They're making them put more
They make
in their
them-
parking garage.
Get that.
Right.
A fourplex don't have parking.
Well, they have to make it, or they can't build the fourplex. They have to provide on-site space. And it doesn't have to be a garage. It could be,
It all sounds. good.
no,
The
but
next
it's
question is
just,
who's gonna police that?
well, it's the, who's policing it now? It's the same thing. I mean, we have to,
And so we're gonna have cars all over the place.
no, I mean, those,
Well,
that gets
it-
policed at the site
Sounds-
plan
Yeah,
and
it's
at
not
the
gonna be
permit
police,
stage.
it's just
Not
not gonna get
police.
permitted.
Yeah, it won't get a permit.
Won't get a permit.
You can't run that through them and they're gonna give you a permit. And I mean, that's not something you have to police after the
Yeah,
fact.
right, it's gonna be police at the front end.
Right,
Everybody apartment they want to build, whether it's fourplex, duplex, triplex, whatever, and then they come to you and say it's affordable housing, then they qualify. That's right.
They can't just say we're doing affordable housing. They have to meet the requirements of the city's affordable housing program, which includes a restrictive covenant for income restricted units. So they have to actually be providing affordable housing.
And there's annual reporting on that, and that is policed.
It is.
The affordability, yes.
Okay, let's move forward. Right, let's get a recommendation. Got it all out there.
I'm ready to make a motion. I'm sure you would. I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments, including ordinance 2025-04.
Okay, could I get a second, please?
I'll second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
All right, got a no on the end, Sharon.
Motion passes
4-1.
There's too many moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Where is it shared? Yeah, check from the beginning. Sorry. Here we go.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 25-00100152, which is consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for an ad valorem pre-construction tax exemption, one variance from the base flood elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code, and one waiver for lot coverage associated with the construction of a new 2,621 square foot addition to the existing contributing single-family residence located at 230 North Lakeside Drive in the Old Lucerne Historic District. For your reference, here is a location map of the subject property. It is on the east side of North Lakeside Drive. It backs up to the golf course. And here is a survey of the current lot conditions. As you can see, it's currently a fairly small structure and an aerial structure. The structure, actually our files are sort of inconclusive. Most of them say it was built in 1918, but there is one that says it was built in 1925. So just to cover our bases, it was built sometime between 1918 and 1925, but it is within a period of significance for the surrounding historic district and is an excellent example of a wood frame vernacular structure and retains a high degree of historic integrity. Here are some other photos of the other sides of the structure. As you can see, it essentially more or less looks like it hasn't been touched very much since it was built. And here's the existing site plan. So the applicant is proposing to do a addition to the side and rear of the structure. Most of the addition would be a one-story with a two-story above the garage portion that you can see here. So here's the existing front elevation and the proposed front elevation, the existing side elevation, and the proposed side elevation, another side, and the rear. The proposed roof plan, the structure does currently have a standing seam metal roof, and so the applicant is proposing to roof the addition in this material as well, and I'll address that later. So as you can see, here's the existing floor plan and the proposed floor plan with the addition to the rear and side. And the second floor, which is located above the garage, is sort of a dormer addition. You can see here the streetscape in relation to the other surrounding structures. This retains its massing essentially as a one-story structure. Despite that second story, it's more in line with some of the surrounding one stories rather than the nearby two-story structures. So here's some renderings of the structure from all sides, so you can kind of see the setback of that addition more clearly. So the addition is generally in keeping with the frame vernacular style of the existing structure and is very compatible. It is compatible in height and massing. It is appropriately scaled to the existing one-story structure and is attached with a one-story connector. It has wood siding to match the original structure, but is differentiated through that one-story connector, leading to a two-story garage addition, and the addition is significantly set back from the existing structure. So a couple of points. The fenestration is generally very appropriate. There is notes on the plans that they will actually restore the existing wood windows on the original portion of the structure. The fenestration is in keeping with the patterns on the original structure. The only concern that I have regarding the application is the head heights on the second floor dormer of the addition, which do, at least on the drawings, show as going all the way up to the top of the wall. A condition is in your staff report to lower the head heights of those windows an additional 6 inches, just so they don't look like they're essentially running into the top of the wall and the roof there. And like I mentioned, standing seam metal is on the existing structure that some of you probably are aware, not usually something that we allow in historic districts, but because this roof has been corrugated metal since at least 1976 on the property cards, and metal is occasionally used on frame vernacular structures, the applicant can therefore do the addition in this material. So finally, one other point on the design, the new entry feature on the one-story connector portion of the addition does feature a column surround and a side light transom arrangement. the way that this is designed gives a lot of visual prominence to that addition further back rather than the existing historic front door. And typically in frame vernacular structures, the entryway would be much simpler, similar to the entryway on the existing structure. So another one of the conditions that we've imposed on the application is that that entryway, at minimum, the column surround and the side lights and transom should be eliminated. So it's a simpler entryway and doesn't detract from the historic front entry feature, since that's one of the character defining features of the structure. Just for your reference, here's a frame vernacular. It is a very good example of a frame vernacular structure. So the applicant is requesting an ad valorem tax exemption. Since it's been a bit since you've reviewed one of these, I thought I'd give a brief overview. Essentially, you'd be exempting the application from 100% of the assessed increased value of the improvements that this addition makes to the value of the property. This exemption will carry for a period of 10 years. And it's a two-part application. Right now, you're hearing the pre-construction application. Once the work is completed, the applicant will return with a completed work application just to update you all on how it goes, assuming you approve it. And at that time, you would make a recommendation to the city commission to approve the exemption, since they are the final determining authority on it. So there's a couple criteria for ad valorem tax exemption. The first is essentially whether it's a contributing structure, which it is. It's a contributing structure in the old Lucerne Historic District. Whether the improvements are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. They generally are. They meet the design guidelines and specifically meet standards 9 and 10, which essentially deal with new additions to historic properties, differentiating the new from the old, and retaining the size, scale, proportion, massing of the property, while still essentially keeping the addition removable in the future. It is my opinion personally that the application does meet all of these requirements. And finally, that the building is not intended to be used for non-profit or governmental purposes, which it is not. So here's the proposed zoning table. The application does meet all zoning requirements with the exception of building lot coverage. So for this lot, it's a large lot. They are permitted 30% and they are proposing 32.4%, which is an increase of somewhere in the area of 200 square feet above their allowable amount. And they have requested a historic waiver from this requirement. So the Historic Resources Preservation Board may waive or modify certain land development regulation requirements. This includes area requirements. And so they're making a waiver request to allow them to exceed the maximum impermeable surface for all structures in an SFR district by that 2% amount. So for that criteria, the waiver modification is in harmony with the general appearance and character of the neighborhood. It meets this criteria. The project is designed and arranged in a manner that minimizes oral and visual impact on adjacent properties. The proposal essentially allows them to put more of their square footage on the ground floor rather than utilizing their allowable FAR. They do have about 600 square feet of additional FAR that they could be utilizing, but that would require them to put the addition on the second story, which would have a greater impact on the historic structure, neighboring properties, and be far less in keeping with the design of the structure. So generally, the waiver allows them to create a more appropriate design from a historic perspective by locating that square footage on the ground floor. The waiver does not injure the area and is not detrimental to public health and is the minimum a necessary amount allowable to use the property while preserving its historical attributes. It meets all this criteria. The applicant is also requesting a variance from the flood-resistant construction requirements of the Florida Building Code. And as a contributing structure, they are also eligible to request that exemption. The structure currently, I believe, would require a 10-foot NAVD elevation, which would be 3 feet above where it is currently. So the existing historic structure would need to be raised, the addition would need to be raised. which would significantly alter the historic character of the contributing structure, which, as we noted, is low scale and 1 story. The granting of the variance will not result in increased flood heights or threats to public safety. And the variance is the minimum necessary considering the flood hazard to afford relief. It does essentially allow the applicant to preserve the character defining features of the structure and not alter the height of either the contributing structure or the addition to the contributing structure. So we do recommend approval for all of the portions of the application, including the ad valorem tax exemption, historic waiver, and base flood elevation variance. And if the board would move to approve the request, we've drafted the conditions of approval below, which are available in your staff report. I'll flip through them if you'd like to read.
Yeah, sure.
Could you show us the photos again at the beginning, please, or the renderings?
Just the renderings?
Yeah,
Just a bit slower, please.
and the existing structure, I think you started with that one.
It's the little one on the
Yeah,
right.
just want to see. Right,
So there's.
Okay.
It looks like they've really done a good job in trying to maintain the look and the character. Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've seen that everything meets criteria, which is pretty good.
and the windows all,
Yeah,
everything
I love
seems in order.
yeah.
Can you explain the tax exemption thing a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So essentially, the ad valorem program is intended as I want to say, this may not be the best term, but a carrot to give to homeowners, to say, here's something that we can offer you for, appropriately, rehabilitating a historic structure, historically contributing structure, in a
So
way.
even an addition is considered rehabilitating it. In my
Yes.
mind, I was thinking it was fixing what was there.
So yeah, actually, the funny thing is, because of the way the property appraiser essentially assesses improvement value, a lot of the times what we would consider, say, just pure renovation, so replacing windows, replacing siding, roof, most of that's not gonna affect your improvement value very much. Obviously, you can invite the property appraiser out and say, hey, would you like to raise my taxes?
Yeah.
But usually they're not looking at things like that. So what triggers it usually, a large increase in your improvement value is something like a substantial addition or an ADU or, essentially a very large piece of square footage that you're adding to the property that increases that improvement value. So yes, it is something, the exemption is definitely available to additions and accessory structures, things like that associated with the improvement of a contributing structure because it is meant to incentivize a homeowner, adding value essentially to their property while giving them a 10-year exemption that carries with the property, not from the entirety of their taxes, still paying the taxes that they're paying right now, still paying the non-ad valorem portion of those taxes, but saying, you're adding a good chunk of improvement value that's going to raise your taxes, will give you a break from that increase for the period of 10 years.
How do you get to 10 years? How do you get to 10 years?
Well, the 10 years is established by the ad valorem program by the city. It's a standard, as far as I know, pretty much.
What is the minimum?
There is no minimum. It's 10 years. You get 10 years and no more, no less. Unless the property owner were to make further changes that were to essentially destroy the historic integrity of the structure, then that tax exemption, the city will come out and say, okay, you don't get this tax exemption anymore. But generally, it's 10 years, no more, no less. Your taxes are going to go up a lot in 10 years, but you do save for that period.
Okay.
You were saying something about that this is a wooden structure. You were
Yes.
saying something, they couldn't get to the this is 9 elevation, it's concerning me, this is elevation 9, but they're in a flood zone,
Yes.
and you wanted
Yeah.
us to grant this their waiver.
So they have the 9 foot and then they have the 1 foot additional requirement, which puts them at 10 feet.
Okay, that's fine. The thing about it is, have they, maybe they don't need it, maybe they'll be good with it. What about their insurance requirements?
Yeah, you get flood insurance like that?
That's another thing.
Well,
No, not really. There is no law.
they're in the historic district, which allows for it. It allows for it in the historic district.
Mm.
Flood insurance.
No, the flood height requirements.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, can
So one of
they
the,
get flood insurance?
Yes. Yes,
Really, you can?
yes.
so the applicants are also required as part of the code to provide a written copy of notice from the floodplain administrator, saying that the cost of the federal flood insurance will be commensurate with the increased risk resulting from the lower flood elevation. And that they understand that essentially this does increase the risk to life and property. Now, whether or not essentially, insurance coverage is a private matter for the homeowner. It's not
They can
something
have
that
it,
we
don't have it.
really
Yeah.
have control over as much as I'd like to. It's not in our purview. So
True.
I do know the structure currently does not meet essentially current base flood elevation.
Correct.
Presumably, hopefully it does have flood insurance. So, whether or not that would affect their insurance coverage is not something that
I
I
guess
can directly answer.
maybe I worded my question wrong. The city did not encourage them from lifting that building to the proper elevation. That's, I just hate to use other cities. What's happening is down in Delray, we had a right along the waterfront. We had one right alongside Dick's ice cream place. It was a wooden structure in the historical district, and what we did was we elevated the building to a proper elevation, and we had to achieve at least above 9, 9.1, 9.2. That was great. But the thing about it is 6.8 is risky, but as long as they know we're not on the hook for it, they can do it.
No, yeah, the board certainly would not
I'm
be,
I'm recommending to them that you consider.
liable in any circumstances
Yeah.
for, granting this variance in the future. It is something that is in your legal power to grant. So I wouldn't expect any concerns. And yes, you certainly, could you elevate the structure?
Yes, you can.
Potentially,
you
yes,
can.
but it,
And then they won't have to worry about that because Florida is changing. And it's changing for the worse when it comes to flood. I mean, if folks,
Bigger conversation.
it's a bigger conversation, but you should know because people in Highland Beach is in trouble tonight. Anytime it floods in the king tide, the water goes right to the house. It's horrible the way you think. I mean, I got a buddy on Lakeside. His pool floods, and as inches away from his front door.
and there are,
And
improvements that they can make to avoid that as well.
if they can entertain the idea of listening to elevation 9 and get out of danger, that's one thing. But we can't tell you what to do. We can only approve this here in front of us.
True. Can I see the front elevation again, the proposed structure?
Sorry, it's a lot of.
There we
slides to flip
go.
through.
I wanted to see.
And are they changing the front, the way you requested?
That's in the
So it's a condition of approval.
condition.
Okay.
I just wanted to see what you were referencing to as far as their look sharp.
Sharp.
All right.
Is the applicant here?
Applicant here?
Yes, they are.
Okay, we're gonna hear
Would
from.
like to comment.
Hi there. Is there any way for me to navigate the presentation or just?
If you tell me what you
point
want me
to,
to
okay.
point to, I'll get you.
All right. Hi, my name's Caleb Laux. I'm an architect on behalf of FGS Design and our client, Ms. Schauman. I think Ms. Hamilton did a good job of presenting the scope of the project.
We think you did a good job too.
Yeah, looks good.
Thank you on behalf of the firm. Honestly, I don't think there's anything I could add. You can kind of see what we did. I think the only two comments I have regarding the presentation are the conditions of approval. So there's 14 conditions of approval. We're okay with 12 of them. Condition number 5 is the one we wanted to highlight. And this ties into the goal of the addition at large.
Right.
The proposed windows on the second story of the north elevation should be lowered a minimum of 6 inches. Right now, as drawn, the windows are at 5'6" above the finished floor of the second story. Our goal is minimizing the second story a lot. We're keeping the ridge height of the second story aligning with the original structure, so it's already a very diminutive second story. The windows being lowered to 5 feet, we think is really just problematic. You're putting the windows on the floor basically at that point. I mean, the other obstacle is obviously if we need to get a bit of a header above that, we'd be raising the height of the dormer. So I would
Give us the picture with the
I would
window.
go look at that.
Annie, please.
And so really this is more of an exercise in making this design intent practicable with our structural engineer.
And that's on the north side.
Yeah, this is a secondary facade. Yes, away from the street.
I'm doing the street in my head, so it's, yeah, and you have that 2-story structure on the north side of you
Yeah.
with that.
This is
Why can't you
Why-
make the windows shorter?
Feeling short.
the windows are at 5'6".
Well, can you make them?
Well, we hang them at 5 feet.
Oh,
You see what I mean? They're asking us to lower them
yeah.
to 5 feet,
Yeah,
which
just
is,
to be clear, I don't want the sill height to be changed. I just want the head height.
well, fair enough.
Right.
But even then we think 5'6" is pretty low for a head height of a window.
Can you live with that?
So, I would say also there's precedent in the Northeast where these craftsman style bungalows were originated with like how things were built and how dormers get built. Usually the roof structure is very diminutive on them. I actually just built a house like this, not like this, but where I had minimized the structure above the windows just so the dormers could be tight. It is a bit, it's more of a construction issue at this point, but we feel that 5'6" is pretty low already for an attic.
May I ask a question? Is the staff's issue with this,
Aesthetics.
the aesthetics, thank you, the aesthetics of it, or
Yeah,
versus
it's more of
structural
a,
considerations?
an alignment, and fenestration pattern concern rather than, anything else.
I mean, as an architect, do you think it looks good like that?
Yes, because this is something that's done in like wood frame construction where this is based off of wood frame construction down here really didn't exist until the turn of the century. So how people were building in this country for hundreds of years, dormers would be framed with very small members. They like the main roof members would be large and you'd frame in between them with dormers and you would sometimes sit the roof members right on top of the plate of the window. So yeah, you would have diminutive assemblies on the dormers itself. And so like in this case, I'd have a top plate or on the top of running across all those windows and having the rafters hung on either side of them.
So the two options, if I'm understanding correctly, the two options are to get smaller windows or for staff to approve the request, I guess.
Or, I mean, the other option is raise the pitch of the dormer, which
Everybody seems to agree that it's not
No.
it'd be more obvious if you go to the
desirable. Yeah.
west elevation.
West elevation.
I mean, that could be done, but again, our goal was kind of make everything, that could be done, just raise the pitch of that, which would be beneficial for us because you'd get us more head height in the addition.
So where are we raising?
It would be
Above the
on
garage
the,
door?
yeah, that little triangle right above on the left side. So yeah, we could raise that eave 6 inches and change the pitch of that roof. But we see,
6 inches.
I think I'd rather keep the windows the way they are than start messing with the pitch of the roof. I think the pitch much more closely aligns with what
That would be the
exists.
best, that would be the
Okay.
best option.
And what was your other?
and then, and I believe it was number 4, which we understand, we are on board with maybe changing the hierarchy of the front facade by getting rid of the transom or the side lights or both.
Right.
Our goal is in that condition is we do want additional light in that area. It is set back from the primary facade by a lot. It is also screened by columns, so it's not like it's right on the building face. And our client would like to get additional light and at least if we have windows, ventilation through that condition. That's like the one condition we can get east-west
So
ventilation. So I would say if I was if we had our druthers, it would just be change the condition slightly to modify that door to be less important than the front door. But we would like to keep additional glazing just because you're never going to get direct sunlight there. Like we're okay with getting rid of the transom, but and
Basically making a glass door.
we don't want to make it a glass door, but we'd like to keep we actually think that was also not keep maybe a pair of French doors. And then it looks like a secondary facade, but it was more of something like we want to work with staff to not necessarily do X, remove these, but just change it.
Well, I mean, basically number 4, you would work with staff to come up with something that would.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could basically say number 4, work with staff.
In general, yeah.
Okay.
I think, a pair of French doors is probably more ideal than what's proposed. It certainly reads
Yeah.
like a front entry
Which would give it
feature.
more light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're also concerned about the design guidelines as well in this discussion. Yes, in terms of the door,
Yeah,
right?
I think that would clearly differentiate it as a secondary rather than primary.
Yeah. So we're on board with that goal.
Yeah, you guys did a nice job, by the way. We don't usually get them as
Thank you very much.
nice looking as that. I don't know how else to say it. Looks good. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to compliment Ann on this report and presentation, really nicely done.
That was good.
Yeah, very thorough.
Good. Thank
I'm
you.
good. Thank you.
I don't have a problem with the 2.4% increase over the allowed
I
lot.
mean, that lot's a
Coverage.
big lot.
Yeah.
And I'd rather them do that than add more to the second story on
Mhm.
that.
Right.
And I agree with staff on that.
Right. I don't have a problem with the base flood elevation variance,
Okay.
so I'm fine with those.
All right. Any other public comment? I was gonna say, Mr. Blackman, you're here, you might as well. get on.
Good evening. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive, and I'm just speaking as a citizen tonight. I don't have a horse in the race in this one. But I was involved with the property immediately to the north of the 3rd Avenue North right-of-way for a while. Yeah, to the north.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be important when you're thinking about the waiver to realize that the property does back up to the golf course. And there is a platted street, I think it's R Street, that is there. And then you have the right-of-way. I'm just wondering about the status of the right-of-way. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that you have more land around the building anyway. So the 2% is going to be negligible. Plus you have this additional right-of-way around there. And I do want to compliment them on the design. I think it's well integrated to the existing building. And I would love to have a 2-car garage at least. So that's all. Thank you.
I do have one more question, point, whichever. Am I correct in understanding that this is still going to be considered a 1-story, even though it says 2-story, a second story all over the place?
No, so this is technically considered a 2-story building. Actually, they would have been eligible for a staff level exemption if it was a 1-story towards that lot coverage, but because they do have, as much as it reads like a 1-story, they do have a full story above that garage. So no, this is a 2-story structure.
Okay.
Else? Any motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve HRPB project number 25-001-00152 with staff recommended conditions. Removing condition number 5 and for number 4 to work with staff. And
So would that be just deleting the second sentence of condition 4 that has?
I believe so, yeah,
Okay.
that should be fine. For a certificate of appropriateness for ad valorem pre-construction tax exemption, 1 variance from base flood elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code, and 1 waiver for lot coverage associated with the construction of a new 2,621 square foot addition to the existing single-family residence at 230 North Lakeside Drive, based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
I'll second.
Thank you. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Right, who's up next? Who's next? All right.
This is ordinance number 2025-08, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, article 5 supplemental regulations, section 23.5-1 signs, paragraph D8, related to signs on streets, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
All right, so we're ending on what is hopefully a short one. We are just amending one section. This came about later than the summer LDRs, which is why it's standing on its own. Essentially, it's just what it sounds like. It's putting a clarification and revision into the existing sign code to allow signs in city rights of way in particular instances. So allowing the city manager to allow city signs in our rights of way, including alleys. So a city sign would be something that's being put up by a city department on city property. So for example, like the flags that we have, or flags isn't really the right term, the signs we have, the banner signs on the light poles coming in on something like 10th Avenue North, that would be applicable here. Technically right now, those aren't allowed in the code.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that would be an example of a city sign in a city right of way. For non-city signs, the city commission would have to authorize that sign. It can only be in unimproved city rights of way, and it's subject to a revocable use permit. So those non-city signs still have to serve a public purpose. So for example, we have some interest on the south side of the city in putting up a neighborhood sign is it the Osborne neighborhood? They want to put up a neighborhood sign so that people have basically like a welcome to the Osborne neighborhood. The only available space they have to do that in the area that people are coming into the neighborhood off Dixie Highway is an unimproved alley. So this would allow for something like a neighborhood sign that's not technically the city putting up the sign, allowing that in an unimproved right of way, something that people aren't using, but it needs city commission approval and it's a revocable permit. So basically, if we ever need to start using that alley, we have the right to say sayonara to that sign.
I'm going to beat Mr. DeVoe to this question. Who decides what a public purpose is?
Elizabeth, is that?
Really, the city would be the determining body. So if,
Is that the city manager, the commission?
well, it depends. So the city manager only has authorization to approve city signs. Those serve a city purpose. They're being put up by the city. The city commission is who would be deciding these other signs. And so the city commission would make that final determination on if the sign serves a public purpose or not.
If I want to put a sign up saying Mango Groves is the best neighborhood association in Lake Worth Beach, does that serve a public purpose?
My recommendation would be no. But the city commission would make that decision.
That says the commission would.
Yes.
So how would that application be made?
It would be for a revocable use permit and for a sign in the right of way. We haven't worked out the application details yet, but it would be for the sign and for the revocable use
I
permit.
guess, but you should you should have so you have this is something to get the ordinance started. So you're gonna come back with the sure what you have. You're gonna bring it back to what? Yeah, you're gonna bring it back to.
This is the ordinance. It's only making these two changes.
Right.
But that to apply for a sign in a right of way, I think you would have to apply for the sign and apply for the revocable use permit, but we haven't talked about those details. So there isn't a specific application process set out here. This is just allowing the commission to do it. There is a companion item ordinance that's moving forward that doesn't have to come to you all because it's not in the LDRs, but it changes the permit process for the revocable permits, and so it may be in there.
Moving forward,
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you. You guys are newcomers here. The reason we look the way we look, because we always pull the cart before the horse. Moving forward, you should always have what you're proposing, what you want us to approve, and bring it to us. This is the ordinance we want.
This is the ordinance that we want.
But you're not telling us, we don't have the whole detail of the ordinance.
Yes, you do. This is the entire
Out
ordinance.
of your own mouth. Out of your own mouth.
Something like an SOP for how a revocable permit would be processed would not be in the ordinance and would never come to you guys. An SOP would be an internal document.
So that's
An
more
existing
operating
application.
procedures process within
Exactly.
the internal decision, right? But the
Yes.
ordinance itself is what we are discussing wouldn't include the process. I get what you're saying. They're gonna have to come up with that.
I don't think the details of the procedure, would sway my vote one way or another. They'd have to work that out, and I don't imagine there'd be anything that would be objectionable to me in their deliberation of how to carry that forward.
And for what it's worth, there is an existing revocable use permit process managed by Public Works.
And a sign application process.
So public, you go to Public Works for that, you put in the application to Public Works for a sign.
The revocable permit,
Yeah.
yes, the sign permit would go to us in the Department of Community Sustainability. Just like any other, if you were putting up a sign at your business.
Now that makes. Give me start, it's you. You're in there.
I say if I'm being too, that's all. Yes.
So we have to do a recommendation that we need to vote, so I need somebody to make a recommendation.
I move to recommend the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments, including ordinance 2025-08.
You will second.
First, for a second,
I gotta say, you got a second.
got a second.
Yeah.
All those in favor,
Aye.
opposed, we're good. Alrighty then.
Anything else?
Right.
Any staff stuff to finish up with, Annie?
In terms of department reports, we'll go through it quick. We have our special meeting next Wednesday.
Okay, now we should be prepared for that mentally.
Yes, we expect high public. Yeah, yes,
I don't think we need.
Where there'll be snacks.
if you bring them.
We're talking, this is about the zoning.
The item going at the special meeting for the plan development for Wamota will include the plan development, rezoning, and COAs.
Okay.
Rezoning of what?
Of 11 parcels.
The proposed museum downtown. Now, we will have a sheriff here next.
Yes, we will have,
I know you're dead
yes.
And is that gonna be blocked off over there? Or we could just have that close.
Whenever, are we gonna have a talk about the rezoning of the beach? When that coming for?
There's no proposed rezoning of the beach.
Say what?
There's no proposed rezoning of the beach, and the beach is not in a historic district, so it would not come to you if there was.
Yeah,
Okay, let's stick with
I
the,
Planning and
thought
zoning
we
board.
were gonna have a workshop, there's gonna be a workshop.
no, let's stick with one thing,
okay.
if we could.
So,
So this meeting is gonna be about, again, I'm sorry, rezoning, yes, I understand that, rezoning, COAs, and what else?
The plan development.
Plan development,
Yes.
okay, and it's gonna be 6 PM in this
6
location here.
p.m. Here, we do expect a lot of public turnout, so we will probably
Parking may be an issue.
is this just our board or is P and Z here?
just your board.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so what should we expect?
Expect to receive tomorrow some very long staff reports.
Okay,
I apologize in advance for the difficulty we had, you no longer have file, we have the first time.
Oh, yeah,
I'm getting used to this stuff.
So
it's okay.
We're good.
I want to go back to that here wrong. Last week, that more to do.
Is there a proof of publication for this meeting?
Yeah, it'll be provided in the packet like normal, but yes, it's been advertised through the city's legal ad, the notices.
I got mine.
Yes,
Oh, really?
Read it.
If you're not within 400 feet of the property, you wouldn't have received
Ah.
any notices.
It's kind of mega
So-
gross.
So you're predicting more people than are gonna fit in here, so how do you guys?
The room in the back is open.
We've accommodated before.
Yeah,
We've done-
Gary's done all, we've done crazy.
Planning and zoning,
Or
we had
ask Mr.
several.
Blackman.
And-
Oh, pitch for it.
So it'll
Um,
be crowded, there'll be a lot of public comment. Oh, well, like, I'll
So I wanted you to, you're good.
So Wimota, next
Right.
week, if you are not going to be able to come, please let us know as soon as you know, so that we can keep track of quorum.
You just have nonsense.
The only other quick department reports is that we are continuing to work towards having a finalized version of the open space and recreation plan. That we had the workshop that you discussed it previously. We're working towards that final draft, which will eventually come to you all. And then just a general heads up that probably before the end of the year, we will have some more LDRs. We did have, our state legislature finish up their session, so there are some changes from the state level that we will have to make some changes in response in our LDRs. So at some point in the rest of this year, we'll have some more LDRs coming, just as a general heads up.
Go ahead.
Just one second. For public comment for the fund meeting, should we have them sign the little
Comment cards?
comment cards? We gonna have that?
And there's limits, right? So-
3 minutes.
Time.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, and I get the timer up here to go.
Jeez.
Sit down.
It's the timer person.
Okay.
Is there someone?
It would be. Take that timer. Yeah, sit down. Finish, Shannon, please. You're good?
That's it for department reports.
You scared me with the gavel. I forgot what I was gonna ask.
Oh, that's right.
You scared me with that gavel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It slipped my mind completely.
I apologize.
Oh, I remember what it was. What is going to be the outcome of that meeting next week? Are we making an official recommendation to the city commission regarding this subject, or what is the goal of the meeting?
The HRPB will be the final stop for the COAs. You will be making recommendations for the rezoning and the plan development.
Fun. You're right. We'll be on camera too, you too, just need site music, the whole thing. Good.
Yes.
All right, so we're good. You have anything to say? Anyone else? Sean, good. I asked one question. You didn't want to say anything about anything?
I'm good. I'm just.
Is this going between before planning and zoning also?
It does not need to.
Doesn't need to.
They were nothing, but our, no, not even.
Unsolicited proposals.
Unsolicited proposals. Be like they saying they had.
That went away?
To my knowledge, there's been no further action on it.
Okay. Very good. Very. I can see him. Get in as early as I do.
Motion to adjourn.
Are we good? I'll show adjourn. You got a second?
Second.